Hi Patreon, welcome back. I hope everyone is having an awesome summer, at least it's summer here in Los Angeles. Welcome to July. It's kind of crazy, it's already July. We are on to another step in our draping series. I know you guys had a lot of requests on what you wanted to see, and I wanted to make sure that we were making that happen for you. I like to break things down in a way that's super simple, like I have said in a few of my videos before, but I have a really hard time learning things usually, so if I can find a way to problem solve it and then like teach you guys in a way that is easier, I'm always happy to do it. If there are things that you would like to see, specific tutorials you want, request, please comment them, message me. I want this to feel a little bit more like a community. I am always here. I check Patreon all the time. I also know that my assistant is also like always helping here. He's always on Discord. So if you guys have questions, pop into the Discord. That's what this community is here for. Few fun things. I am working on the July pattern, which is a suit jacket. It is unisex. It is beautiful. I'm like so excited about it. Also working on the August pattern, which by the way is the bustier dress, which is fun because it can actually be split apart into a bustier or just into like the skirt. So super exciting things coming up. Now let's jump into the drafting. So if you missed the last video, what we did is we drafted this bodice on the dress form. I left it on here so that the tape line so you could see what we did. I do suggest that you watch that one if you're wanting to jump into like draping and like cool swoops over the dress form or whatever we'll get into. But I just think it's kind of beneficial to know some of the knowledge that was in the last video before you hop into this one. But if you're just looking for a little entertainment, watch it, why not? So I have the bodice from last time on the dress form. I did take the back of it off because we're just gonna be working on one side at a time. I say this because whenever you're creating pretty drapes or things that you want to stay on the form, it's important to think about what seams they're going to be sewn into. And I always like to do my side seams and my shoulder seams because really these are the four seams that control the construction of the garment. And so what I've done is I have left the front on here. As you can see, this fits beautifully onto this dress form. You do need a dress form for this, and you're also gonna need a little muslin for today, some pins, pencil, and scissors. Just the basics. This is just playing around. I do also want to say that there are no rules really. Like whatever you want to create is like truly what you should work on creating. This is just a basic tutorial. You know, the magic really comes when you let your mind explore and you play around and allow yourself to like mess up and like fix that and like kind of learn in that process. So don't get freaked out if you don't get it exactly where you want it to be. Now, if you need the supplies for this, I did list them in the previous video, but I can also link them in the description of this video too, so that you have them and they're right here. So let's get into it. So I'm gonna be using this organza. It's sheer, it's gonna be easy for me to mold and for you to see what's happening today. Now, I like to create my base first. For today, it's gonna be this muslin. I will only do the front half of it at a time, then I can work on the back half pieces, but what I'm gonna do this for is because we're gonna have to secure the overlay into the side seams and the shoulder seams because they are the strongest seams. That's typically how I create it. I know that there are other ways, but we're gonna learn my way right now. Okay, so I'm gonna start by just draping my overlay onto the form. I'm just gonna kind of pick a place. I wanna make sure that I've got a lot of fabric to work with because you never know where you're gonna have to pull fabric from. So I'm just gonna start by pinning at the shoulders. Gonna give myself a little bit of a weird neck situation for the second, but this is gonna kind of show you what's gonna happen here. I'm just gonna kind of create some counter tension at the shoulder lines, right here at these seams. You're gonna use a lot of pins today, so I hope you have a lot of them laying around. So, see how this is kind of laying pretty flat up here? I'm not mad at that. Now we can start sculpting and making this pretty and deciding what we want. So, you know, there's a world where let's say you want it to be flat and you just wanna like, you know, do some pretty gathers through here. Also fine. There's no right or wrong way, but ooh, that was gorgeous. This is kind of what I love about sculpting is like you start to see these beautiful lines happen and you're like, oh God, I want this to stay. So that's what we're gonna do. So I don't wanna have for my dress, I want this to all be pretty tight to the top. I think it creates a pretty shape. So I am just going to pin all along the outside edges of the lines here. You can still see this tape line and the line of the underneath bodice. So let's just create the tension around the neckline because I know that I'm not going to be doing any weird draping at the top. So see how I'm just kind of creating a little tension there? It's nice and flat here. Gorgeous. Now let's play a little bit. I have not practiced this, so this is gonna be very like organic for me, but I'm just gonna kind of drape something and talk you through as I do it. It's not about creating like one specific thing at the end of the video like our last one was. This is more about getting you into the concept of playing with fabric and sculpting and feeling what the fabric wants to do. So I'm just gonna give it a go. So, a little hair in there. Okay, so let me just start by pulling on the fabric and just kind of seeing what shapes we can create. I mean, options are endless, right? Wow, that's actually really stunning. Okay, so I kind of like what's happening right here. You can see it's like a scoop. So, I like this kind of line that's happening here. I'm just gonna pin this in place. Right here. Keep in mind, everything is movable. There's no right or wrong. We are just playing right now. I am gonna move my pins up a little bit, get rid of some of that tension. Okay. So I kind of like the idea of creating these lines, maybe a bunch of them that go down. That'll make this like a solid kind of taupey brown like we have going here. So I'm just gonna kind of create these lines. Now when I'm pinning right outside of the lines of the undergarment because I want to make sure that I can pin them onto this. I'm just kind of creating it so that I know that this shape is gonna go over the seam allowance of the other garment because we're technically gonna be sewing this into the side seams. Just gonna keep working my way around. Now the thing is you don't have to pull it super tight. The beauty of draping is that, as you can see, it's a little 3D, right? It's a little dimensional. You can get very 3D if you want. I mean, this is great. Your base garment is truly just there to give you the shape and the structure to hold everything else in place. So if you want to do a big old giant drape, you can do it. You know, there's really no right or wrong. This is technically where all those cool ideas come from. Now you can see here's the bottom of the garment. If I'm gonna do another pleat, I don't want it to go over the edge of it. I wanna make sure that I give myself my seam allowance and kind of respect that I know on the last garment we draped, it was a 1/2 inch. I wanna stop about 1/2 inch. I don't want it to go into it. Sometimes when you sew that into the seam, it gets a little wonky, so you wanna make sure that you don't let that happen. So I'm just creating my counter tension over here, which is gonna really kind of show me how these pleats are gonna react once there's tension in here, which this is actually really stunning, right? I'm not loving this one, so I'm gonna get rid of it. So now I'm just pinning along the bottom of the garment. I can see my base garment under there, so I'm using that as my telltale here. I want to give a little more tension to this one over here. Do it from this side. I'm gonna start pinning my overlay to the undergarment. Now I'm gonna pin inside of the outside. So I'm gonna start pinning the garment from the inside facing out. I don't want the pin to go over the edge because we're gonna be cutting all along the edge of the base garment here. So make sure that all of your pins are facing inward so that you can get a clean cut. This is delicate, this takes a little time. You absolutely wanna make sure that this is correct and like where you want it. So when it comes to your pleats, before you pull out this pin to insert another one, I actually like to start by inserting a pin first into the undergarment and then I can remove that pin. And I will just work my way down the line of just pinning first and then removing. This just gives me a little bit more control in making sure that my pleats stay exactly where I want for them to be. It's a little tricky. Like I said, take your time with this. But you're gonna be working your way around your garment and pinning from the inside out. Okay, now that we have pinned our overlay to our base fabric, I'm just gonna go ahead, take my scissors, and start cutting that overlay out. I'm going to follow the exact line as my base garment. If it's not sheer, you're gonna have to pull it back and just kind of follow that line from underneath. But because mine is sheer, I can show you guys exactly what I'm gonna be doing. So I'm gonna make a little initial cut, and I'm just gonna start following that base pattern all the way around. This doesn't have to be perfect, but you wanna make it as precise as you can with your undergarment. So I know that this is gonna be a little intimidating, but we are going to be cutting where our pleats are. So you can even give yourself a little extra room if you want. It doesn't have to be exactly perfect right now, because after we flatline these later, it'll hold everything in shape. See? Clean line, pleats are in place. Now I'm just gonna follow this around. Wow, see how when I cut that, it just kind of, that little pleat at the bottom I didn't want just kind of falls away. Gorgeous. Just gonna follow the whole base garment around. Okay, as we can see, we now have the front bodice that we had pinned, ready to go. Everything is cut around the edges. Everything is pinned to the underlining. Okay, so I wanna make sure that my pleats are going to stay before we take this off of the dress form. So my little hack here is I will take an iron that has steam setting on it, and I just steam the pleats in place. I think it makes a world of difference when it comes to keeping everything where you want it to be. It just kind of helps the fabric know where it's supposed to go also. Okay, so now we remove it from the form. I know that this is the part that everyone is nervous about, so let me move in closer and show you. The form is pinned on there, right? Like everything is pinned. Now I'm just going to start taking the pins slowly, removing them from the form underneath. And I just want to make sure that all of my pleats are perfectly pinned to the garment. So I'm just gonna start removing only the pins that are holding the base garment to the dress form, and then just kind of reinserting those into just the two fabrics. See how this is starting to peel off the form? I'm just gonna slowly remove the pins and just only pin them through the fabrics, not the dress form. I have my finger underneath of here kind of guiding up the garment. You're making some progress here. And I'm just gonna work my way around the whole garment. See how it's just peeling right off here, but our pleats are still in place. Now I'm just gonna start working on the other side. I wanna make sure that everything has got a lot of pins, as many as you need. Only pinning through the top layers, not the garment, or not the mannequin. I have officially taken it off of the form. See how it holds its shape really beautifully. Now we're going to do a very important step, and that's called flatlining. So flatlining is where I'm going to do a stitch all the way around the outside edges of the garment. I'm gonna do it a lot less than the seam allowance. So like the seam allowance on this is 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna sew all around the outside edges at 1/4 inch. So that way when everything is sewn together, you don't see where we flatlined it. So for this, I'm gonna be using a contrasting thread because I want you guys to see. I'm actually gonna sew from the wrong side. And I'm just gonna go all the way around the outside edges, just at 1/4 inch on the base here. See how this is overlying a little bit? It's not cut perfectly, that's totally fine. We can cut that away afterwards. This is our guideline here. Now if you look here on the front, you can see we've got our perfect line around the outside. Don't worry, none of this is going to show once the garment is sewn together. Okay, so now that the front is done, we can work on the back. I will tell you, I'm gonna keep the back of this very simple. I wanna make sure that it's like an easy tutorial, but if you wanna do something crazy, if you wanna mimic the pleats from here, working their way up, you can also do it, but for the sake of keeping the video simple, I am going to just pin all around the outside edges here and just create a flat bodice back here that's going to match in color to the front. And we're going to treat this the exact same way that we treated the front, by pinning around the outside edges. And then afterwards, we can take it off of the form and then flatline it. And now we have our back ready to go. See, the underlining has a dart here, but because we're stretching the fabric over it, we know how it's gonna fit the body, so it's a little different. But let's take it off the form and flatline it. Okay, so I am just gonna sew this together for you guys so we can see what the finished product is going to look like. Now this is typically not the correct steps we would do this in. We would do our lining first. And here is what the finished bodice looks like once we have sewn the front to the back. Like I said, this does not include the lining, but I wanted to show you guys what the finished drape would look like. As you can see, the pleats held exactly where we wanted them to. That is the beauty of the steam and of flatlining everything together to the base garment. I just wanted to say thank you guys for watching today. The goal of the series is to get you guys comfortable with draping. Obviously not everything is going to be perfect every time we make it, but it's just kind of fun to get you guys going, get you playing. These are things that took me a really long time to figure out, and I think like having access to a little bit of homegrown knowledge is kind of fun. So if you guys have questions, suggestions, things you want to see, please let me know. Like, I'm always happy to help out with it. I think skills are the most fun thing to pass around, so if I can help you out in any way, please let me know. Until next time, bye guys.